A big hello, hope you're well. My plans for today is to photograph a number of waterfalls with my film camera here in the amazing Lake District, and so far my plans haven't really panned out. Even though I was very loose with my plans, I hadn't really planned on what specific waterfalls I was going to photograph. I was just going to drive around and photograph waterfalls as I went by them, and it's not really started too well this morning. I came in via Windermere, drove up to Ambleside, thought, you know what, I could photograph the waterfall in Ambleside, but then I remembered it's in front of a big metal fence. It's a great waterfall to look at, but when it comes to taking images, it's not the best. So I continued on to Rydal Hall, and I thought I'd try and get another version of that iconic shot of the waterfall and the groat. Parked up, paid me £2 parking, only to discover that the path to the waterfall has all been closed off and padlocked because it's being resurfaced. So I've continued on towards Keswick, but I haven't got to Keswick yet. I've stopped off at Thirlmere, where you find me at the moment, or is it Thirlmere? I can never remember which one. I'm just having a walk around at the moment, seeing if I can spot any compositions that catch my eye. Now, as I speak to the camera at the moment, I haven't loaded any film into my film camera, and I've got to make the decision soon over whether I'm going to be shooting black and white today or colour, and I'm feeling very indecisive at the moment. But the possible two compositions I've spotted so far by walking around this small area, Steel End Car Park I think it's called, I think I might be leaning towards colour. So after the two compositions I had in mind, I'm now down to one, as I don't think the first one is going to work, but I feel this one certainly has potential. At the side of me here, we've got this woodland walk, we've got trees at the side of the reservoir here, but here we've got this gap where it opens out. We can see the views across the reservoir to the waterfall that's flowing down the side of that mountain. And the water, you can see on camera, is just still enough to give a reflection of that waterfall, the white of that waterfall in the water there as it flows down the side of the mountain. So I certainly think there's an image to be had here. It is decision time with regards to what film I'm going to be using today. I've got two black and white film stocks. I think there's an Ilford Delta 100 in there which I need to use up, but I think I'm going to go for colour. So I'm taking my camera out of the bag. I already had the 75mm installed on the body, and for this scene, really the one that I originally envisaged here, I think that's going to be a little bit tight. But looking through the viewfinder, I'm actually seeing a composition that might work better than my original vision, although I'm still going to switch out for the wide angle shortly. What I'm looking at, I've sort of cut the scene down by a third really, using this slightly tighter focal length. And this bottom corner here, we've got these logs at the water at the bottom, adds a nice little bit of interest along with the tree going up the right hand side of the frame. Now, by using this lens, I've managed to send the waterfall to the left hand third of the image as well, which I feel actually adds a little bit more balance to this scene. That said, I don't really want to judge the result until I've seen both the tighter one and the wider one side by side once it's been developed. Now, as I'm talking to you now, you might be able to see behind me, we've got some low cloud that's just creeping in across the top of the waterfall. Then we've got some more coming in from the other edge, but I think this one is going to stand out really quite well in the image. So I'm going to quickly try and take the shot now and capture this cloud as it comes across. I don't want it to totally cover the waterfall, but just as an additional complement to the image, I think it's going to work quite well. Settings wise for this one, we are on f8.25 of a second. So I've switched out to the 45mm wide angle lens, and I've had to back up quite a bit to get the amount of scene into the frame that I want to photograph here. I wanted to bring in this tree on the left hand side as we're going for a wider shot now. I wanted to get the shoreline at the edge of the water in the bottom of the frame, and I wanted to get a good portion of the sky in as well. This has meant I've had to switch to a portrait orientation, but once again I think it works well and it adds a bit more of a difference to that first image that I've just taken. Same settings for this one, nothing's really changed. Fingers crossed it's going to come out looking decent. So just like in my last landscape photography video, I'll show you all of the image results from today at the end of this video. Now, speaking about my last landscape photography video, there was a minority, a very small minority of people in the comments that weren't too pleased about the standard of my landscape photography in that video. And I just wanted to touch on this, and I sort of agree for the most part that most of those images in that video, and it's very likely most of the images in this video, are not going to be great. They're not going to be on par with other landscape photography vloggers, and there's a good reason for this. Previously, when I shot video and I was vlogging, doing my bits to camera, quite often I'd do a bit to camera, maybe babble on about 5 minutes how much I liked a certain composition, explain why I liked it, go through all the different elements. When it got to the image, looking at it on my computer, I thought, actually, that image is a bit pants, and it's not really worth me going on explaining about this image to show it. So what I'd do, I'd end up cutting that whole piece of the vlog out. Now I'm shooting film and I'm showing everything at the end of the video. Everything feels a bit more honest, if that makes any sense. As a photographer yourself, if you go out, maybe you don't vlog, you'll know that you'll come back with a memory card full of images, and the majority, most of the time, will probably be binned. There'll only be a few keepers that will remain on your hard drive. And when it comes to vlogging, quite often when you watch a number of landscape photography vloggers, you'll see that they never seem to make a mistake. They never seem to get a bad image. That is the magic of editing, but I've come to realise that when it comes to creating a vlog, you're creating a documentation of your time out in the landscape, as I am here in the Lake District here. If for some reason my film gets lost in the post, I get no images from today, that doesn't matter. I've still got a video. I'm still sitting talking to camera now, and I've got a documentation which I can watch back in the future. If anyone gains any value from this video, puts the likes on, subscribes to my channel, for me that's just a bonus. But at the end of the day, I've got a documentation of my time out here today in the amazing Lake District. I hope that all makes sense. So on to the next location. I've come to Ashness Bridge after driving in via Keswick, and I've come here after seeing a video on YouTube by Keswick Limmy, I think his name is. I think he lives locally, and he came here and took an image looking down the stream that's next to me here, going out across Derwent Water to the mountains behind it. It looked absolutely epic. However, as you can see, looking downstream past the bridge here, there's just too much cloud. We can't see the mountains on the skyline, and it's a very boring sky, to be honest. Looking around at any other potential options we've got here, we've got a very nice waterfall just here, this little mini fall here cascading down. I'm really liking the green gorse around the side with its yellow flowers which are coming out at the moment, but what I'm not liking is the amount of stickiness, to coin a phrase. We've got all these bare branches and twigs encroaching into this area here, and I feel it actually acts as more of a messy distraction. I don't think this is going to work here, so I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the other side of Ashness Bridge and set up the usual compositions that people get from this location. So I've come down below the iconic Ashness Bridge, which is just behind me here, and we've got the water cascading in the front here. Now, this is the first time I've actually used this polarizer, which I purchased a number of weeks ago. This is a B&W polarizer, a Posh polarizer. This one, although I'm in two minds whether it's actually doing anything, it's definitely taking the glare off the rocks, but it's making, through the viewfinder, to my eye at least, the scene a bit more murkier than it actually is. I'm not too sure I'm liking the effect, but I'm going to try it anyway because I've not used a polarizer with film as yet, so this is going to be a first for me. Settings wise, I'm looking at the 45mm, which I used on the last image at Thirlmere. I'm at, what am I at? I'm at an 1/8 of a second at f8 here. I don't really want to smooth out the water here because it's going to just cause a great sort of lots of white streaks throughout the image, and I think I'm already going to have lots of those anyway. I just want to capture a little bit of motion in the water to complement what otherwise is a very subdued scene. I'm set up in a landscape orientation here with this main white bit of water on the left hand side of the image leading up to the bridge, and these trees at the side of me, as you can see, are slightly encroaching into the scene here above the top here and over on this side. So I don't position the camera a little bit lower just to ensure a nice clean shot. Eventually at Ashness Bridge I ended up taking 2 images from exactly the same location. I really wanted to see what half a second would look like with that last composition, and when I crossed to the other side of the stream I didn't really see anything that I think would make an image. So what I've done, I've continued down to Honister Pass, I think it's called, and I've been a little bit distracted while I've been driving down here. Originally I didn't intend on taking any photos down here, but at the moment the drizzle's moved in, it's a little bit cloudy and things are looking very, very epic. I'm going to have to get my camera out here and take a quick image, I think. So when it comes to photographing misty, foggy and cloudy conditions such as these epic conditions I'm in at the moment, I won't normally use a polarizer even if I'm photographing a waterfall, and this is because a polarizer can often cut through this mist and remove that feeling and ambience that you're trying to capture in an image. In this situation, however, I am going to use a polarizer. Let me explain why. So in this particular situation, we've got all these clouds rolling through the mountains. It's absolutely epic just standing there and watching the clouds come through, but it's fairly thick. So using a polarizer on these clouds, it isn't going to have much effect, but it is going to have quite an effect on this wet road, which is very shiny. We've got puddles just at the bottom here, and that shininess could cause a little bit, I don't know, a bit of a distraction in the image. But by including the polarizer, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be darkening this road as it goes through the image and just add a little bit of contrast and just help the eye lead into the image a bit more as it follows down the road. Composition I'm looking for here, you might just be able to see on the edge here, we've got this little mound, we've got the road coming around this way, but to be honest, it doesn't matter where you point your camera in this particular scene, you're going to be walking away with a great result regardless. Setting wise on this one, let me just take the shot before this car passes. There we go. Settings wise, that was f8 at half a second, as the light is fairly low at the moment. There we go, caught that one just in time. So I've arrived at Buttermere now and I'm just walking down to Waterside to see if I can get any images from down there. But something that's been playing on my mind since taking that last image on Honister Pass is the shutter speed. I can't help thinking that half a second surely was too much for that scene. That was what my light meter was giving me, and it did feel at the time that the light was fairly dark, so you know, it might be right, but I am concerned that my highlights might be blown on that image. But I'm only going to know in a few days when I get the results back from the developer. But moving on, there's nothing I can do about that now. I've just walked down through this absolutely beautiful woodland from a lay-by at the top there, coming down to Waterside at Buttermere. But when I return back up this way, I'm certainly going to be taking some images. Let me just give you a brief look at this location. So we've got this path that winds its way down from the roadside lay-by with a couple of bridges crossing over this absolutely stunning stream as it cascades off the mountains down to Buttermere. We've got these beautiful mossy greens at the moment throughout the woodland because we've got no leaf coverage or anything overgrown. Everything's looking very clean. The water itself is crystal clear as it's coming off the mountains, and there's this brilliant white tone to the water as it cascades down, all just contrasts beautifully with the green surroundings. It's got a bit of a AI feel to it. It's like walking through Photoshop in real life. It's an absolutely beautiful location. Certainly going to be getting an image from here on the way back up. just got down to waterside now and quickly set up my camera to capture this scene at the end of the water. I don't know if this video camera's giving it justice. We've got sun just at the end of Buttermere here coming through the clouds. It's making for a beautiful scene. Switched out my lens to the 75mm and I've popped on a graduated filter here, which I just need to wipe the drizzle off. It's also proving to be a really interesting spot as this corner of the footpath is flooded and there's lots of people lining up to get past the flooded area. It's an absolute nightmare trying to photograph and film today on the shores of Buttermere. I think it's half-term week, so it's just hordes of people that seem to come through in batches every time I try and set up the camera. At the moment, fingers crossed, we're at a bit of a silent point. The image I'm trying to capture at the moment behind me here, this is a location I've been to a number of times and I've got a couple of images from here previously. Although normally I try to include some form of foreground element, like some rocks in the water in the foreground, and have that as the background. Today that's not going to work as the water levels are rather high and I can't find any foreground elements. But that doesn't matter because I've put on a tighter focal length. We're back on the 75mm and I'm seeing a really nice composition through the viewfinder here. We've got High Crag, which I think is that mountain up on the left hand side there. That's at the top corner of my frame. And running through, we've got this waterfall, this absolutely epic waterfall, which I don't think has a name, that flows down the mountainside to that little area of trees at the bottom. It works on this format as well, 6x7, so well looking at the viewfinder. I'm quite excited to see the result from this one. This could be one of the best images of the day, I feel. No fancy filters on for this one, no fancy settings, f8 and a 30th of a second for this one. Just setting up my next scene now. We've got this white house here at the end of Buttermere and the mountain behind it I believe is Haystacks. I can't recall the name of the other one next to it. I do know the name, I just can't remember it at the moment. So I'm just trying to photograph this beautiful scene here. We've got this very flat valley there with the trees and that mountainous backdrop. Now, as I'm trying to use the little white house as a bit of a feature in this image, but also portray the enormity of the landscape, I need to be very mindful of trying to get the eye to go to that house so it's not lost in the image. And hopefully, by using this shoreline here, as it bends around, you can see it sort of points out at the side there. I'm using this as a little bit of an arrow to point the eye over to that house. So your eye goes through like a diagonal way through the image. Then at the background, we've got these sort of mountains where you continue on after you've spotted the house. That's my thought process. Whether it's going to work or not, I don't know. And at the moment, I don't really care, to be honest. I'm just loving life in this absolutely amazing landscape. With that last shot in the bag, looking at my camera dial, it's telling me I've got one frame remaining. It could be two, I'm not too sure looking at the dial, but I'm pretty confident it's just a single one. So with that in mind, I've returned from the shoreside, waterside at Buttermere, to that path I came down earlier with all these beautiful cascades coming down in this green woodland that was absolutely magical. Now I've sort of endured the epicness that is the side of the water at Buttermere. Coming back here now, it doesn't feel as magical as it was when I first arrived here, and I'm really struggling to find an image here, to find a composition. Don't get me wrong, this whole area is really beautiful, but just trying to find a small section of that to photograph I'm finding really difficult at the moment. I have found this little bit here upstream. It's a little bit sticky, as I was talking about at the beginning of this video. There's lots of sticks sticking out, but we've got the shape, we've got a bit of an S-curve with the water going up, and we've got a mini waterfall at the top. I'm at f16 and half a second for this shot, and this, I have to say, is down to guesswork. I've taken a light meter reading, and that was telling me that I should be going at an 1/8 of a second at f16 here. But I feel with the low light level I've got at the moment, I don't think that shutter speed is going to work. And I've got a feeling there's something going wrong with my light meter, so I'm going to go for half a second at f16. I'm confident I should have a shot here. So here we go, the final one of the day.